Because we have a lot to talk about with you. Good morning. My name's Elizabeth Babcock. I'm with the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, and I'm also the track lead for the conference for the track that's focused on connecting learning institutions, building learning ecologies and pathways. So I'm really glad you came to this session. This is the featured panel session for this track of work here at the conference today. And as you know, the work of building learning ecologies and pathways is complex and complicated, but it is important work in which a number of organizations and youth and their mentors and all kinds of folks get together and work on a geographically regional level or across geographies to really link learning experiences for youth. And that's what this track is all about. And the panel today, this morning, which is called This Connected Life, the Trials and Tribulations of Building Learning Labs and Learning Networks in 3 acts, you're going to have fun. It's actually very fun and dramatic today. But this panel that we're doing this morning is focused on a particular aspect and a particular angle on building learning ecologies and pathways. Namely, how do you incorporate youth into the work of planning and designing a learning network and pathway programs and learning labs. So injecting the youth voice into that very important work is what we're focusing on this morning. So I'm going to very quickly introduce the panelists today, and if I want to read your name, do you guys mind just giving a little wave? So we have Morgan Anderson from the Columbus Museum of Art. We have Cathy Cormier from San Francisco Public Library. Ingrid Dahl from the Bay Area Video Coalition, Elyse Eidman-Aadahal from the National Writing Project, Amelia Marsh from Pima County, Arizona, Robin Mencher from KQED, Jennifer Nichols from Pima County Public Library, Rick Panganiban from the California Academy of Sciences, who's going to be our MC, and Emilie Robert Wong from San Francisco. So 2 of our panelists here are actually youth who've been involved in our work together, and we're excited to share their insights along with those of the panelists. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick. Into that very important work is what we're focusing on this morning. So I'm going to very quickly introduce the panelists today, and if I want to read your name, you guys might just...
From WDML Chicago
So we have
and Connected Learning International, this is This Connected Life, and I'm your host, Ira Glass. Today on our show, we have a story in 3 acts. Our first story looks at how teens were integrated into the first baby steps of the San Francisco Learning Lab. Our second story brings us to Columbus, Ohio, where we learn how their youth organizations dealt with the challenge of depth versus scale. We'll warm you up with our third act from Pima County, Arizona, where we'll find out how local teens conducted their own community survey of what teens really want. The central question all of them seek to answer is, how do you include youth voice into a local learning network? But first, what is a learning network? We're going to begin our show talking with an expert in learning networks, Elyse Eidman-Aadahal, from the National Writing Project. Elyse, tell us, how do you define a learning network? From WDML Chicago.
Ira, I'm so glad you asked me that question.
This is Disconnected Life.
I was prepared to answer many questions, but that is a question among which I am prepared an answer. Actually, we want to give you a sense of what a learning what a learning network is. And I would just point out 2 things you're going to see in these stories. One is that a learning network is a network for learning. And another is that a learning network is a network that learns. And we hope that we'll see both of those in today's 3-act show. By a network for learning, I mean simply this. In a region, in a locality, if the institutions and the adults in them that sponsor learning opportunities for young people or even for adults work together in a network, they have the capacity to help learners go beyond the affordances of their own institution. They give them paths into wonderful programs and opportunities, and they give them paths from one to another where they can level up or increase their skills in a particular area of interest. So knitting together the institutions that sponsor learning opportunities for young people is a vitally important thing for creating a kind of ecology in a region that reaches more young people and lets them have access to a broader range of opportunities to become the people that they would like to become. The opportunities that are maybe right next door to them, but their current pathways don't let them find them easily. Learning networks work to solve that problem for young learners. They also might work together to create a kind of synergy among opportunities that really makes the learning opportunities richer, bolder, more exciting, and more open to innovation. So in that sense, learning networks are networks for learning. But of course, you can't bring people together in a way that will let them do those design pieces together without saying, wow, this is also a network that will learn together. Almost everything in our learning institutions, for those of us that work in schools or libraries or museums or community-based organizations, almost everything in the way our organizations work silo us from each other. That's the design of the systems we've inherited. So to take up the task of creating a learning network means for the adults, there's a lot of new work for them to do, to learn, to work together. And then to introduce young people into that space also cuts across another kind of historic division between the people who sponsor learning opportunities and the people who take advantage of them, puts them both in a space of learners and leaders together. So just a couple points about learning networks to set up our three opportunities. One is very much it's about building those pathways, but doing it in a space that's transparent and collaborative and open to having everyone, the adults included, be able to be learners in the space. Two, it surfaces a tremendous range of people who create opportunities for young people. It pops them up. And in fact, there's an activity that a lot of them do called a pop-up. It pops up the opportunities in a local space that might have been hidden not only from young people, hard to find for young people, but also hidden from the other professionals in an area. It makes them more visible. Now, getting along that path is a journey, and so you'll hear today three stories. You'll hear from San Francisco, where there's a sense of planning and starting a learning network. What is that implementation phase? What is that inception phase, rather? And then you're going to hear from Columbus, where you're going to hear a little bit farther down the road into implementation. And you're going to hear from Pima County, where there's a kind of testing the waters to see if we can get there. And all three of those stages have their own challenges and their own opportunities. And the drama of what it means to be a learner in a space, creating something that's probably absolutely brand new in the place where you live.
Thanks, Elyse. Couldn't have said it better myself. Excuse me one moment while we deal with some technical difficulty in our public radio show. Act 1, San Francisco. Organizers there wrestled with the dilemma of how to bring youth into a learning lab that didn't even exist yet. Let's welcome Cathy Cormier of the San Francisco Public Library, Ingrid Dahl of Babcock, and youth representative Emilie to our show.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cathy Cormier. I am the Teen Center Manager and Learning Lab Manager at the San Francisco Public Library. Although I've been a youth librarian for 10 years, facilitating authentic youth engagement was new to me when I stepped into my newly created role in December of 2012. When I first met Emilie and the 19 members of the Board of Advising Youth, also known as BAY, a paid youth board whose job was to design not only the new Teen Center and Learning Lab, but also library programs throughout San Francisco. This group had been hard at work conceptualizing the center for months before I arrived. My colleague, Jennifer Collins, who some of you know, set the tone at each meeting that it was the Bay's work to create the Learning Lab. Although we librarians would have a say as to the areas of the center, such as where the books would be books and computers and an audio and video booth, makerspace, performance area, the location and look and feel of each element was the Bay's job, Emilie's job. Eager in my new position and heady with the ideals of leading the Future Learning Lab as a center of digital media, stepping stone to lifelong learning, and an opportunity for San Francisco's underserved youth, my first instinct was to somehow help the process along, put my voice into it, to make sure that the new center encompassed a broad spectrum of literacy. Yet, although I would vocalize my ideals to my colleagues, I remembered even at the beginning that it was not my center. And though the youth were sometimes hesitant in voicing their opinions, especially when they first met the architects who they would be working with to design the space, I instinctively knew that the best way for me to contribute was to simply observe. I was learning that one way connected learning happens is when adults are patient and quiet during youth meetings. Truly bringing voice to the table takes time, a lot of time. The importance of being patient and quiet, difficult for me as I really love to talk, as some of you know, began to coalesce when I went to the Learning Lab convening in Washington, D.C. last February. That was my first convening, an amazing time. And we got to go with all of our partners on our Learning Lab grant, which of course are Ingrid from the Bay Area Video Coalition, Robin from KQED, who you'll meet in a few minutes, and also Elizabeth, who you just met from the California Academy of Sciences. We brought a giant team to Washington, D.C., and it was really great. It was actually my first time to get to know this wonderful group of passionate, brilliant people and get to work with them. So the very first night we were there, we toured Art Lab, the amazing Smithsonian Institution youth-centered space. Before we entered the lab, Art Lab leader Amy Hama impressed on us adults that we were to remain at the side of the room and not engage with the youth or mentors or ask questions or interrupt their work in any way. Amy set the tone that this was an authentic youth space, and in order for the space to work, adults not working directly with youth were not welcome. At Art Lab, I observed that connected learning happens when youth are able to set the tone and adult influence is measured, intentional, and ultimately spare. Back in San Francisco, I knew what I had to do. The design charrettes for the new Teen Center and Learning Lab were upon us, the moment to put what I saw at Art Lab into practice. What is a charrette, you may ask? A charrette is a period of intense design activity. At the Bay meeting, just prior to the first charrette, I asked the youth to remember that during the charrettes, they were the professionals, the architect's clients. It was the Bay's job to be candid during the design process. The first charrette brainstormed the look and feel of the space through collaging, and the second charrette was the Bay's opportunity to critique and adjust the 3 preliminary conceptual designs that was a result of the first charrette. Throughout both charrettes, we librarians and other non-architect adults in the room stayed out of the limelight and only offered opinions when asked by the youth or the architects. The non-architect adults intentionally staying in the background, I believe, made a powerful, lasting impression on Emilie and her colleagues. At the charrettes, the Bay really took ownership of their role as designers and leaders, recognizing the Learning Lab as something they created, especially when they saw their conceptual design refined into a final design, a youth-driven design created through connected learning, resulting in a very soon-to-be-named Connected Learning Hub coming to San Francisco's Civic Center in spring of 2015, thanks to the continued advocacy of the Bay at public funding meetings. And now I'll turn it over to Emilie.
Good morning, everyone. So really something that first stood out for me when I joined the Board of Advising Youth was the creativity and innovation that we all could enjoy and strive for. The first question that they asked us was not what is a library, but what should a library be? What is your ideal vision of a library? Right across the corner from here at the Boston Public Library, on the outside of the building, it says that it was built for the advancement of knowledge. And I posit that that's really what libraries should be. It should be a place where we can come and learn and grow. And I think that something really important that we did in our meetings was expand our ideas of knowledge. Knowledge is not just for books anymore. Now it's all about, like, we're in the 21st century, it's all about the new media, it's about being able to create things. It's much more than just kind of static knowledge. It's about interacting with the knowledge. It's about learning new things about yourself and learning new ways to learn about yourself too. So something that really stood out to me at first was instead of kind of leaving some ideas off the table, we were encouraged to share all of our thoughts with the board and with the librarians there. Basically, instead of asking us, like, what can we do to improve, it was asking us, what would you like ideally, and we will make it happen. And so along with that, there was a real sense of permissiveness and ownership. Constantly, we were reminded that the youth were the ones who were making the decisions. We were the ones who were interacting with the ideas. We were the ones who were coming up with the ideas. And the adult librarians were more there to facilitate and guide us along this journey. Something that really stood out to me was when we first looked at the current teen center, at first we were a little hesitant to criticize what was going on until finally someone said, I can't believe there's all these random old people here. So that really stood out to me because there's a sense of permissiveness. We're allowed to criticize. We're allowed to start completely from ground zero and really push for innovation. And one of the coolest moments was when all of our abstract ideas finally made it into something concrete, and we realized, oh wow, this is actually going to happen. And that happened, as Cathy mentioned, after the charrette, when the architects presented our ideas fully fleshed out, and it was just really, really cool. So finally, I think something else that's really important that we talked about is the idea of community and sustainability. It's about constantly keeping the center updated and constantly focusing on serving the community of youth. It's about connecting people who might have diverging interests but who can come together at the teen center and learn something new, like how to DJ or how to make short films. So I'm so excited to see where all of this leads in 2015.
By the way, Emilie is a freshman at Harvard. Can we just give it up really quickly for Emilie? So my name is Ingrid Dahl, and I am the Director of Youth Programs at the Bay Area Video Coalition. And we have been a partner of the Learning Lab and the Bay Area Youth Media Network, which I'll explain in a second, as well as the planning committee for the Bay Area HIVE. And one thing that I think you all early this morning will want to know is, well, how did young people find out? How did they apply? What is the process like in actually becoming a youth advisory board member? So for the library, which when they had their first call for applicants, they actually received 19 students who were interested. And Emilie actually found out from her counselor at high school. So that's fascinating to think about the kinds of networks and pathways and communities to engage with. I definitely think students like to apply, and being interviewed helps them get a sense of what their role will be. Also, being interviewed gives a sense of permission, like, wow, I might actually be granted acceptance into this unique position, a decision-making position. And that helps a student see that, wow, my role actually lends itself to leadership. And that's really key. So the Bay Area Youth Media Network, kind of at the same time, the Learning Lab was building their youth advisory board. BAM also was building their own. So what is the Bay Area Youth Media Network? It's a consortium of nonprofit organizations that believe in the power of media as a means to engage youth voice, self-expression, and empowerment in order to inspire social change. As like-minded organizations in the youth media field, collectively, we are able to tap into the rich potential of our collective resources and our expertise as educators, working to define an alternative, media-based education for young people. I'd say that both the Libraries Network and BAM both believe in that young people ought to produce media instead of consume it. They ought to be able to become leaders instead of just be led. And for those of you who like to tweet, feel free to tweet those things. So the steering committees between the Learning Lab and BAM are shared. And I would like to explain that BAM actually has an incredible national festival every year. We have our third annual festival coming up in October, and this is actually going to be a HIVE Bay Area main event. What's really exciting about that is we have 12 young people between the ages of 16 to 26 who've applied to be on various committees for BAM Fest. What that looks like is the steering committee of adults made an RFP, the students applied, we interviewed all of the students who did, and we selected 12. There were about 25 who we interviewed. Of those students, they basically decided what committee they want to be on to help the festival, and the photo that you're seeing and probably have been staring at, wondering, what is this, is their orientation. And it was a super amount of fun. It was very high energy, and a lot of them started diving right into the work about planning for this festival. And actually, it is entirely youth-led at this point. They tell us, adults, what to do. So the combination of adult allies working with respect and a space of trust with young people is extremely powerful. And we're witnessing that right now. So I just want to kind of wrap it all up and say, if you're in a unique position where you have different kinds of youth advisory boards forming, which is fascinating and wonderful, there are different kinds of manners in which you can actually build collaboration amongst that, so you're not just reinventing the wheel. San Francisco is open to any of your questions later to kind of identify what were our roadblocks, but certainly in the fact that we're going to have a Bay Area Hive, the youth-centered aspect of San Francisco's youth initiative here is really fascinating. So we're happy to share that with you as we figure it all out. Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy, Ingrid, and Emily. Let's give them a hand, please. That's fantastic. Act 2, Columbus, Ohio. Which is more important, reaching a lot of youth in a thin way, or a smaller number of youth more deeply? Let's hear one answer from Morgan Anderson from the Columbus Museum of Art.
Hello. So I'm going to just give a brief chronology of our network and how we formed, because it is a little different than others, I think. So Search Columbus is 5 institutions, and those institutions are the Columbus Metropolitan Library, the Wexner Center for the Arts, WSU Public Media, and COSI, which is our science center, and then of course the Columbus Museum of Art. And my awesome programming team is here, and I want to give a shout out to them. Thank you for being here. We all work together, so this is a very collaborative effort. There's no one person here. So just to give a background, in 2011, it was announced that we had received a planning grant from IMLS and MacArthur. And the core team began meeting, but it wasn't really until 2 years after that that the programming team was really put together and began meeting regularly. And at that point, we kind of needed a name for our big partnership, and we gave that job to some youth from the Wexner Center, and they came up with this awesome name, Surge, and I love it. It has an energy to it. So right at the beginning, they were involved in that planning process. And then, really exciting, last summer in 2013, we were awarded a grant from Battelle for implementation, and we had teens from our institutions speak at that press release, and that was really the first time we had announced ourselves to our community. So just to explain where we are now, in February 2013, the Columbus Metropolitan Library opened up their Teen U Media space. So theirs has been open the longest, and they have 2 really awesome mentors there that are working in this space with teens Monday through Thursday evenings. And then WSU refurbished their Ross Media Lab this past fall, and they also have an open lab for teens on Saturday, with also students from OSU who are mentors in that space, guiding teens throughout their projects. CMA, the Art Museum, just recently opened up our open studio space on Thursday nights. So we have 4 hours a week, and we're hoping to increase those hours in the summer. And then what we're really excited about is COSI. They had been looking at a space, particularly Dave, one of our programmers, had his eye on it, and after a long waiting period was told that that was going to be a space designated for teens. So as soon as that news was revealed, we got really excited. The Art Museum sent over some teens from our existing program to kind of give feedback on the design and the furniture and the layout and things like that. So we're really looking forward to that, and that's going to be opening April 10th. And then back in the fall, our programming team, with the mix of our core team as well, realized that we saw a need for some kind of a big event. We hadn't really told our community about what was going on since our press release back in the summer, and we wanted to do that, but also we realized our focus was primarily on recruiting teens. We all have teens in our spaces, but we wanted to broaden our audience. So we began planning for an event to be held in correlation to COSI's opening, and we brought in our Teen Event Council to meet with our programming and communications team to plan that event and just get feedback on what kind of event they would like to see happen. So let's see. So how we decided the event would look is really based off of our ideas of programming. We realized that there is more impact for each individual teen, moving staff and mentors and also youth around to each of our organizations, because we are centrally located and we all have different resources at each of our locations. So we found that creating these really meaningful, genuine relationships with mentors is what's really making the impact for our youth, and connecting them to other resources at each of these locations is what's really been important to us. So we thought that that would be a great way to kind of shape our event. So it's going to start at COSI, where actually the WSU Media Lab is located inside of COSI, so we'll have 2 of those sites there. And then we're going to be having teens get on shuttles and go visit the other spaces. So again, focusing on that movement and creating opportunities for them to, with a group, see our other spaces and see what's available there. At each of the spaces for that event, we're going to have mini workshops that will really reflect the kinds of resources that are available at each of our organizations. And we, have some incentives. We're giving giveaways for getting on the shuttle and going to places. And we asked our teens what kind of things that they would like to receive for that. And we're also going to be involving youth in our social media for the event. So tweeting and Instagramming and putting our hashtag out there. We'll be, giving out flash drives and earbuds and things like that. And we're also inviting our CEOs from all of our organizations to keep them in the loop and really give them a picture of the work we're trying to do. And I know there's an invite to our mayor yet, but we're still waiting to hear back about that. And then we're also looking to highlight some teen work that's been coming out of each of our labs. So an opportunity for teens to exhibit the work that they've done, whether it's visual art or music that's been recorded at the library, things like that. So we're really looking forward to kind of give them that opportunity. So back to CMA, so we're very new. I think we've had like 9 total drop-in open studio nights, but they've been really great in attendance, and we've had a lot of teens that are coming back that had a good experience. And where we are right now is, so myself, I'm in the space, and then another teaching artist, but we're realizing we need another mentor. So right now we're in the process of looking for a mentor and hiring a mentor, and what we're finding is that we're really focused on that relationship and building that trust that Ingrid was talking about. And we're finding that it's not just skill-based. Where we want, our mentors to have that capacity, we're also realizing that having a practice of care and being really observant and being able to identify the needs of the youth in our spaces, but not just identify them, but also to meet them. And luckily we have a great example from the library. Their mentors are awesome, and They spend their time, learning new programs. If there's a need for something, or there's an interest, they're figuring it out on their own. They're incorporating different workshops and activities with the youth. So our plan is, once we hire a mentor, is to get them over there and observe with the library mentors who are doing such a great job. Have been really inspiring. So I think that wraps up my spiel, but I wanted to show a video of some youth from the Art Museum's space and show just a little snippet of why these labs are so important and what the youth are getting out of them. This is Brianna. She's awesome.
I like coming to the open studio because it's an opportunity where I can take up time, do homework, play with the computers and studio, so I love it. The studio here is really awesome, especially for something free. It has good quality, it has Logic on there, I'm able to edit and do whatever I can. When I make beats, different sounds.
I homeschool, so I don't get the opportunity to do art very much, and this is my opportunity.
Rawr/meow. I don't know what it is yet.
Having the teen space just gives me a workshop area that I wouldn't have normally at home. Along with that, I get to have collaborations and mentors and all the other programs that go on here, but having like a one set time to just use whatever tools and items to prepare myself or to build my portfolio. It's just great. Plus it's just fun.
I will say one of our youth made the score to this video, so I just wanted to thank you.
Let's hear it from Morgan. Act 3, Pima County, Arizona. So what's the easiest way to find out what youth really want? Maybe you should ask them. Let's hear Jennifer Nichols from the Pima County Library and Youth Representative Amelia tell us how they did just that.
Good morning. I love how Rick gets you all to smile and laugh before we come out. So the Pima County Public Library hired, with our Learning Labs grant from MacArthur, we hired 15 youth to really research and design the youth center from the very beginning of the process. So, of course, we had the idea to create a youth center in our downtown main library, but we also are in Pima County, which is one of the largest counties in the country. It's about the size of New Jersey. So we had to really think about how can we serve all of the youth in that space. And we thought the best way to do that is to really talk to them and ask them and have them do that work. So we put out a call and we got over 250 applications. So it speaks to a few things about our community. One is just the true dearth of job opportunities for them, and that is coming up in the survey and the findings that Amelia will talk about in a little bit, but also just that the opportunity to create a space where there is none was really, it validated what we were doing and made us realize that we really are feeling a real need. We're not making one up. So what we're asking them to do is define the how, the why, and the where. So without even telling them this is the spot that you need to design or redesign, we gave them the freedom to really dream big and think about what do they really need instead of within these constraints, we want you to create this space for us or for you. So it really opened things up for us and for them to create something that really met their own needs. And we already had digital media programming going, and so we would hire professionals to come in and teach workshops at some of our branch libraries around the system. And what we learned from that is that everyone was looking for community, that they wanted a workshop, and that was interesting, but the instructors and the youth were saying, what happens after this 5-day class, or what happens after this 6-week engagement? we no longer have access to one another. Sometimes the kids didn't have access to the equipment. So what is good about that? And they were really asking for more. So we're really proud about bringing the youth in so early in this process, but it did come with its own set of challenges. One, they needed to learn all the skills that we were asking them to use. So how do you survey your own peers? How do you run focus groups? How do you plan an event? How do you present to a group of adults who have expectations? How do you talk about this work? How do you do authentic research that is valuable and credible? The amount of time that it takes to work together has been huge. We like to point out to our administrators that sure, we could all sit together in a room and come up with a plan for what our youth center can look like and what elements there should be, and we can use the research and we can talk about what other people are doing in San Francisco and Columbus. But that's not the point. The point is the process of deep engagement and the relationship that we build by going to our users, and you see this in community engagement efforts, in the activist community. You go to the user and you talk to them about what they're struggling with, but we don't see it so much in the educational institution world. So we're really excited to bring practices that other organizations and other movements use into our learning institution and say, this is how we can design something together, and this is how we can build our own sustainability. And so that has really generated support within our institution, so that real learning through the process has not just been for the youth and the adults who work with them, but for our institution and for our community. So as we have community forums and the youth present what they're doing and the data that they've collected, the community is learning along with them, and they're realizing the value of this process too, and they're trying to serve youth, and being able to listen to them and engage with them has really been exciting and fired up our entire youth serving community in Tucson. So our final product, of course, we can concentrate on creating this youth space within the library and the network of organizations that serve them. But really the final product is getting our community working together with youth on that even playing field. And so we have gotten over a year of practice under our belt, and I think really made the argument for why we always need to employ these youth to consistently keep that cycle of feedback as we do more programming and open up a space and renovate our building to accommodate this. So I'll turn it over to Amelia to tell you the real story.
Hi, I'm Amelia, and I'm a youth. So I was hired about a year ago. I was with like the first cohort of people who were on the youth design team. So I got hired, and then they told us to get to work, basically. And a lot of what we've been doing is surveying, and I just have a copy of our first survey that we ever handed out because I think it's really indicative of how we've changed. So, question number 3, what should be on our walls? Murals, TVs, other. What should the wall color schemes be? Bright, warm, dark. So questions like that were basically what we were asking people, and that's kind of what we thought we were coming on for, was to create the superficial elements of a youth center. But as we discussed it and as we looked at what was actually in Tucson, we realized we needed to do more than that, and that we needed to go deep into why the youth of Tucson need this center, what they actually need, and how they're going to use it. So in order to figure that out, we did a lot of things, and we asked the youth. So we created another survey and another survey and another survey until finally we had a survey that was actually effective in capturing what the youth needed, like what their hobbies were, what they wanted to do. We also created a focus group model and learned how to facilitate focus groups, and then we facilitated 9 focus groups total. The youth were the leaders of the focus groups. There were no adults leading it. And we passed out over 2,000 surveys, and we got all the results back and analyzed the data, and now we have that data. And that was last semester. And now this semester we're analyzing the data and we're doing lean start experiments, like based off of lean startup principles, to make sure that the assumptions that we have about the youth of Tucson are real. And then from there, we're going to go into our planning process and our funding process and all of those things. So it's been a long process, and I think that that's really valuable. And I think that what youth bring is that they don't have any preconceived notions of how to do things. Like, we have to learn how to do things, but that's really valuable because we're going to learn how to do things in the best way, not the way that we've always done. Another thing I want to talk about is the way that we interact with the adults. I think it's a really important partnership. The adults they're not like not there, but they're also not overbearing. Like, it's a back and forth because we don't have a lot of the skills that we need. Like, we don't know how to make a survey immediately, so we need an expert to come in and consult us. We don't know how to facilitate things immediately, so we need someone to come in and consult us. And as we do the process, we learn these skills through doing and through the experts, and it becomes a synergy of the youth design team learning and then also learning about what the community wants. I think that's another really, really important thing too, and that's interesting about what we're doing is we're kind of not the brain, but like the center of the organization, and then we go out into the community and also find out what our peers want. So it's not just about 15 youth, it's about the whole community of youth and really doing that. Let me look at my notes and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, so I guess in conclusion, it's a lot more than whether or not you want there to be murals on the walls. It's about finding a voice for the youth, whether it be in the youth design team, whether it be in the community, and also when it's going to be in the youth center. It's about finding a voice, it's about creating agency and excitement and passion and academic success and future success. Like, it all combines to create something really, really amazing, so much more than just something like the color scheme. So thank you so much. Yeah.
That was fantastic. Thanks, Amelia. So there you have it. Stories from 3 different learning networks in 3 parts of the country. But we know there are many more stories out there. Let's have Robin Mencher of KQED sum up some of what she's heard today. And then we're going to invite you into the conversation. Robin?
Thank you. Let's give it up one more time for our 3 fabulous communities. Well, we've heard some inspiring stories that have been documented in our communities over the past several months and even up to a couple of years about how to do the hard work of building learning networks. We learned that it's a process of community-wide learning that puts the voices of youth at the center and is a process that happens not for youth, but with youth, oftentimes led by youth. Some of the big ideas, if I can take a moment to pull them all together for us, that has emerged this morning is the power of relationships, the value of taking the time to facilitate skill building across all the stakeholders in the community working on building the network. And for young people to take center stage, that means that the adults who are working with them can have an opportunity to step into new roles ourselves. The role of being the observer, the role of being patient and quiet and allowing those youth voices to emerge. The opportunity to create the space for young people to set the tone for what the work will be, and for the time for those community connections to come together. Somewhere in there is some secret magic recipe for finding the purpose and the value, and for the community to build an understanding about the need for these new learning spaces. So once again, I want to thank our 3 communities for bringing their challenges and their successes into the room today. And we're going to go through a couple of opportunities to hear from you all about the work that you're doing in your communities to bring youth voice to the center of your work. But before we get there, we thought we would take a few minutes to open up our conversation this morning and give you all a chance to ask these great youth leaders and the adults who work with them some questions that get down to the nitty-gritty business of how they get their work done and build these communities. So if you have some questions, feel free to step up to one of the two mics. Here's your chance to interact with young people and the adults who work with them directly.
Thanks so much for all of this remarkable news. A lot of this was centered on the actual centers, but there was a preamble that was talking about the connectivity to others. How does that actually work? Are you Skyping? Is it asynchronous? Is it synchronous? Is it both? How does connectivity work?
Who wants to take that on?
Feel free to use these mics.
So what was really cool about our board is that I think almost everyone came from a different school. So the way that we did it was we would go to our meetings, we would have our discussions, we would have like a list of questions, and then each of the board members would go to their own respective communities. It could be friends that they know from extracurriculars, friends that they know from school, friends that they know from the neighborhood, and everyone would go directly to their peers and ask them one-on-one, hey, what do you think about this idea? And then once we collected all of those answers, we would come back to the meeting and discuss sort of our views and also what everyone else around us wanted as well.
In terms of connectivity too, like in terms of creating a network, in Tucson there's not a whole lot of stuff, and it's even harder for people to find it. Like it's just hidden away. So a lot of the things that we've talked about in our meetings is once we create the center, making it a hub, not just for, like we're gonna offer our programs, but we're also gonna partner with other community organizations. Like this is silly, but we're gonna maybe have a bulletin board of all the activities that are going on in Tucson for youth. So if someone comes to us and they say, I wanna do Russian ballet, like something really technical like ballet or something that we aren't going to offer, we can point them in the right direction of what they are going to offer. And in terms of that also, I think it's about economic connections too. So creating a system where businesses and nonprofits and stuff work with us, maybe in an entrepreneurial way, maybe in a donation way, maybe both. And that creates another kind of community where we all have a vested interest in these youth.
So just to add to that work behind the scenes is happening to create those networks, because one hub in downtown Tucson's not going to serve the youth in a community that large. So it is about creating that pathways amongst those institutions to connect to one another, so that at one point then we will look like Columbus, where one youth comes into the pathway and the circuit here, and then they get directed to the right place. And so our community is starting to do that work on the adult side, and so what we want to do is introduce it on the youth side so that they start to share that information with one another.
And I'll just add to the adult piece from San Francisco. Ingrid touched on it, that the Bay Area Youth Media Network, also known as BAM, has a youth advisory board. They're called the YFAB, Young Folks Advisory Board. And what they are is they are a group that not only has wider community representation, but actually 3 members who are part of the board advising youth for the library. So that's one way that we're intentionally trying to build that broader youth network, by infusing the youth who are part of other boards in the community who represent the diverse organizations that are part of BAM, some of whom are part of the San Francisco Learning Lab, but also bringing in other organizations as well. And so it's really kind of an organic grassroots way to build that voice using the existing networks that exist, as well as building new networks at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to add?
No, I just wanted to, it's on? Okay. Really wanted to thank you for that question, because one of the things that I think is so important for us all in this community to remember that many of the activities we're engaged in from a distance may look identical to other activities. And so building a youth space in an institution, like for example, putting a teen area in a library, is not all that necessarily new. What makes it new? What different ways of behaving as adults vis-a-vis our peers or inviting youth in, what ways of connecting, make the building of this space part of a different kind of effort than perhaps just creating a teen space might have been before. And so we need to be better, all of us, myself included, at talking about that, being able to talk about why it's a hub and not a center, and some frames like that that help illuminate the larger project. So thank you for that spur to think about.
All right, so in Denver, we're at the very beginning stages of kind of creating a learning network as well. And what I'm curious about is, how did you solicit the youth to actually get them engaged in this process? Because I'm trying to think about it right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, how would I, how am I going to get the message out that I want all these youth to kind of apply for these, these advisory boards? So I'm just really interested to sort of hear what you guys did to get your youth engaged.
Okay. I can speak on behalf of the Bay Area Youth Media Network, and if you think of like 20 different organizations coming together and having all of the schools and all of the nonprofits that they conduct outreach to, once you come up with an application, and all of our applications are online, so you can totally cut, copy, paste, use it as you may, and that's exciting, Denver, yay. I think it's then really important to see, like, when you use outreach streams differently in a way that's collaborative, you'd be surprised to see how many young people rise to the occasion, and young people from your organization who want to be that ambassador. So a lot of our young people are like, oh, this is a leadership opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to continue to build trusting adult-ally relationships larger than the organization that I've currently experienced. It's a place where I can add it to my resume, all these really great leadership development and cultivation skills. So that's one way. From the Learning Lab side, I think Tucson wants to give their opinions.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of institution that you work for, but from the library point of view, we created an application and we put it on our website. And then we had a partner who worked for a big printing house, and he designed and printed posters, and we kind of scattered them throughout our community. But what I think what really happened is because we put out the application right before Christmas break, thinking, we'll do this outreach, they'll have all of Christmas break to fill it out. They went back to, but we didn't get into the class. You can't get into a classroom the week before Christmas break, so we didn't get any applications, maybe like 20 applications or something. We were really excited. And so we made an effort just that last week. The deadline was, I think, January 17th or something. So we went into any classrooms we had and talked to different groups, trying to go to media programs in the high schools or after-school programs that are concentrated around digital media. And we got applicants from there, but really the librarians that I have, everyone has their list of school contacts. And we sent it out that way, and it just took off. And suddenly they started rolling in, and we're like making bets about how many we're gonna get. We have 100, oh my God, I can't believe we have 100. I bet we'll get 150. We got 253 applications, And suddenly, how do you boil it down to 15, and how do you make sure that group is diverse? And so the process that we developed was just trial by fire, but we figured it out, and we are happy to share that process with you. But I mean, I think if you have money to pay them, it's really fabulous. It is really hard. It's harder and harder for anyone to find work in our communities. So young people are at the bottom of that. And any opportunity to have meaningful employment where they're getting these skills that they are not going to get at a restaurant is really exciting for them, and that is incentive alone. But then really being upfront about as much as you know about what the job's going to be. We didn't know what it was going to be, but we said the pieces that we did know. And that really helped them want to participate in the process, I think.
I would just also echo the ability to pay the youth is huge, making them professionals, and it really, I think, brought that buy-in. Also letting them know that you're learning as you go along. Really, Jen just spoke to that, and it's so true that we're learning all the time. And it's really, I think, great for the youth to see that you adults are fallible. They don't expect, I think it's really humbling for you to show them that, we hear all the time that you learn through your failures. And they see us make mistakes and change and learn from those mistakes. And I think that's a very valuable lesson, that you're creating this opportunity to work with youth. You don't have to have all the answers, and you can look to them to be the experts in the room and help you figure out where you're going. So it's been pretty much the most amazing experience of my life to have this opportunity to cultivate youth voice, because I learn so much every single day from this process.
So real examples of cultivating that youth voice through engagement principles and practices in action in our communities. We have time for one or two more questions.
So can I back you up one step earlier and talk to me about how did you get your institutions to open the door enough to allow something like this to happen? And how did you get those 20 or 30 institutions involved in the project in the first place?
So I can speak to San Francisco. We had an amazing leader who helped us apply for the IMLS grant. Her name's Jill Bourne, and now she's the director of the San Jose Public Library. So I think it really takes someone on your leadership team who has enough authority to really buy into it. And even when you have that, even if you have a lot of reluctant people, which I'll admit we still do within the middle ranks at our library. I'll give you an example. Our youth are playing ukuleles in the hallway to incorporate maker philosophy in our library, and the security guards shut us down. They say, we've been told by a librarian that you can't do that. So that happens. Those real things still do happen. We have those battles and challenges every single day, and I have to go, hopefully I'm going to learn through the wisdom of all of you how to go back and cross that barrier. But at the same time, I know that we have our leader, our city librarian, Luis Herrera, who is 100% behind the project, as are the leaders here with me at the table. So just having I'd say one really strong leader who's an authority can really help you build those bridges and get the institutional buy-in. Although it's a process, I will admit, it happens really slowly, and it's continuing to this day, especially in libraries where, as many of you know who work in them, there tend to be not only old-fashioned people who work at the library, but also old-fashioned ideas of what libraries are all about. As our youth can tell you, we have them go to library commission meetings to advocate for funding for the space, and we've actually had them role play because we're telling them, I'm telling you there's going to be adults in the room who say, the library's about books, they can learn all this at school, and really having them be the people who tell their stories and dispel the myths and say, we actually don't have these opportunities at school, that this is learning, really infusing that learning is what happens many times, most of the time for all of us when you're not in school. I think that message just has to be repeated again and again.
So one other thing I'll say from the museum, representing the museum, is echo what Cathy said about the importance when you're setting up your learning network. So now I'm talking about your learning network, not necessarily the learning lab. It's really important as you assemble the organizations that are going to help kind of steer that work together to make sure you do have representation on your steering committee at different levels of the organization. So in our Bay Area Hive, we have members on our steering committee that are senior staff at the institution, so VP level kind of people, and who are brought into the philosophy around youth voice and can be the executive level sponsors. Then we have people who are at a managerial level who can actually guide the program development within the organization. And we also include not only the youth, who all of our organizations have youth participants, but we also include the program staff on the ground who are the ones that work most directly with the youth on a day-to-day basis. And having that multi-level approach that every organization that's part of the Hive or your learning network present in the planning and strategy has been also a learning opportunity, as Elyse had mentioned, for the organization. So for the best advocates for this are the youth and then the folks who work with the youth every day, and for them to fill me in, for instance, in my role as a leader of my institution, about the value of that, and then to see that translated onto our public floor or in our the stories and the impact of our youth has been a wonderful two-way kind of communication that doesn't always happen at such an intensive level. So that's really key, that multi-tiered approach in setting up your network.
And just to build on that, I think one other point that is significant about how the learning networks and the learning lab, let's say the actual instance of the teen space or whatever that someone might be creating, are really knit together, because one of the aspirations in a learning lab, in a way, is to reinvent the institution around that theme of moving from consumption-centered, whether it's consuming books or artifacts or curriculum, to something that is more production-centered for young people and more connected in that way. So when the institutions come together in a learning network, in addition to being able to see the benefits that people might already associate with networking, they now have a community that's in the same process of reinvention. So it is in fact a value added that helps mitigate some of the, why are my young people going to your institution? Because I want them to come in the doors of my place. It's actually then kind of dissipates some of that zero-sum game feel that often learning institutions have in a region by saying all of us are going through a historic transformation. Let's try to go through it together and see what we can do together to move us all forward. So I think that's an important point too, how they're linked.
You asked specifically, how do you get 20 different organizations to come together? And I think Elyse definitely touched upon that, but I just want to say, if you're a youth serving organization and you can barely cover united all of the young people in your city, you're doing the entire city a disservice by not partnering.
Our last question.
Hi, everybody. So Pima County touched on this a little bit through designing surveys and focus groups with teens to help design this space. But how are your teen councils, or are you engaging teens that aren't a part of those councils in giving them a voice?
I would just say for Columbus, we do have a teen event council, but I think, at least for us at the art museum, we're still, developing our space. Like I said, we've only had like 9 open studio nights so far. But again, it's that mentor piece of being observant, and when you hear something, reacting to it, or when you hear a need, making that possible. So I think we have the leaders and the volunteers who really stand out as far as really wanting to participate and attend meetings and things like that. But also, it's that piece. Last week I had a teen say, well, if you had Madden, I'd play the Xbox. So if you get that, I mean, that's a small example, then they realize, oh, all I had to do was say what I wanted, or what kind of experience I wanted to have, and then when you fulfill that, then it's kind of like, oh, okay, I should speak up more often.
I just want to say 2 things to, I guess, go a little bit deeper into what we're the survey and focus group thing. One of the things that we did with the focus groups was we made sure to go to groups of non-dominant youth. So we went to the Refugee Coalition, we went to a hangout space for LGBTQA youth. Where else did we go? We went to the Juvenile Detention Center, and we had a focus group there. So not only are we trying to really actively trying to get the voices of youth in Tucson, but we're trying to get the voices of youth in Tucson who may not be heard otherwise. One more thing is we're really planning on maintaining this youth advisory board throughout, once the center is built, just throughout the center's life. So to have a place where youth can go if they want to, or they can be hired and really have a hand in steering the center no matter where it goes, because we think that's really important for evolving and learning and keeping the youth voice present.
And I would say that's true in San Francisco as well. The Board of Advising Youth will be continuing and sustaining to inform youth voice in all library programs forever, I think. But also another way, we've been inviting youth groups from other underserved community organizations, after school programs to come in and have our youth talk to them about what they're doing. And so that's another way, and also going to youth events in the community as well, having the youth come and tell about what they're doing and how they're excited about it. We actually were just there last weekend at a career science fair where our youth got to speak about what they're doing to other youth and engage them and get them really interested.
And I think that that's something that's really important, is making sure that it's coming from the youth, because if an adult says, oh, check out this teen center, it's really cool, I'm not sure if the youth are going to agree with that. Whereas if one of their own peers comes to them and say, hey, this is something really cool that I've been working on, what do you think? You should definitely check it out once it gets built. That really does create kind of organically this sense of excitement.
All right, who's feeling organically excited right now and inspired by these three communities? Yeah. Well, we've attempted this morning to bring to you three models from three distinct communities from three parts of our country, where we really see a movement from consumption to production in our civic spaces, and where this is happening through youth engagement and youth voice leading the process. But we know that this work is not happening only in three communities, and that many, if not all of us, have experiences where we are trying to move this work forward by ourselves, with our colleagues at neighboring institutions, or we've gotten to much more sophisticated advanced stages like the models that we've seen here this morning. And what we want to do is to utilize the remainder of this time to tap into and honor the collective knowledge that's in this room this morning, to share out what is really successful in the communities that you come from, and what are the challenges that you're facing, and what are you doing about them. This is a shared learning space, and we're actually going to turn this room this morning into our own sort of learning network. So you've been staring at a couple of questions up on the board. Hopefully you are inspired by the storytelling that you heard this morning, and we're going to ask each of you to find somebody who's near you. And we're going to break up into partners. If you came with a colleague and you want to utilize this time for real collegial reflection, that's great. But we're also going to encourage you to reach out to someone you haven't spoken with yet from a community that you may not know very well, to share some knowledge about what's working and what the challenges are in your community. So, you see the two questions on the screen. What's the biggest challenge you have had to navigate to better support youth? And what's the biggest opportunity that you think you have in your community? We're going to ask you not only to talk about it, but eventually to share out your answers at that URL that you see right there. Or if the spirit moves you and you want to tweet it, that's great too. We're going to take just a few minutes. So, find someone to chat with, introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your community context, and then share out your questions. We'll give you a few minutes, and then we'll prompt you to share out more publicly at the URL you see at the bottom of the screen. Did I get it? Go.
Oh, because Lisa's watching it.
Well, I have to say, they were going to get some fun money that doesn't either way. Or
We'll take about 5 more minutes for this small group conversation, so give your group a chance for everyone to talk.
Oh, no, I don't know. What's the deal? Yeah, it's a lot, yeah. Is it, pictures, yes? Well, there's one because, yeah, but because the video goes viral, but audio is often something that you listen to while you're listening, and so you're not as closely connected to your device, and you don't have a unique experience with audio in the same way. So there are all these people working to figure out how to change that. Does it count?
So maybe we can tell them, remind them that this is the final part. Summarizing.
Great. So wrap up that idea you're discussing right now, and we'll come back together as a group in just a minute. All right, folks, let's see a show of hands. Who connected around an inspiring idea? Who heard something that's worth sharing more broadly? All right. So what we're going to do right now is ask you to just take a few minutes to document that collective wisdom that's in this room. And if you go to tinyurl.com/connectedlife, you too can take just 3 or 4 minutes and add your reflection to our collective knowledge. And then this will stay with us as a reference for the work we've done together this morning. And again, if you'd prefer to just send out a tweet or two, you can do that as well. Again, tinyurl.com/connectedlife. It's this easy, just a few words.
Alrighty, let's wrap up our program so then we'll have some time to interact with our, oh, sorry, I just broke character. All right, let's wrap up our show and then you guys can talk to these fabulous speakers. Just have a quick thank you at the end and we can continue this conversation. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Disconnected Life. Our show today was produced by Morgan Anderson, Elizabeth Babcock, Ingrid Dahl, Cathy Cormier, Elyse Eidman-Aadahal, Emilie Marsh, Robin Mencher, Jennifer Nichols, and Emilie Robert Wong. Let's thank all of them for being on our show. And of course, thanks to all of you for tuning in, both live and on the internet, and supporting public radio. Please feel free to keep sharing your ideas and challenges so they come to you over the weekend at tinyurl.com/connectedlife. And let's keep the conversation going. Until then, I'm Ira Class from WDML Chicago. Back next week with more stories from Disconnected Life.